Welcome to our energy talk here on Skype Live, Wednesdays at noon. My name is Jona Bryndis. I'm a professional energy healer and energy coach. And we use this community talk to elaborate, share, and me report about those energetic weather conditions, these energies that are coming in that we can all feel that affect our life, but that are often difficult to express, to articulate, to talk to other people about. So in my regular monthly energy forecasts and reports, I write a little bit about how these outer conditions, these outer collective energetic conditions affect us or will affect us, how they are working on our bodies, how they're working on our emotions, on the way we're thinking, and also, the immaterial aspect of our lives, what we call spiritual, like how we find a place in this world, with all the things, the current events, etc., that are happening in the world. So let's get started here on these last days of November, where we can clearly feel now that it's the end of the year, it's the end of a cycle, and where new energies are coming in. These new energies, as you will see in the energy forecast that I have already recorded, it's just not posted yet on my website, are very spiritual in nature. Now, the Christmas time, traditionally, whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, is a time where families come together, where we think a little bit more about sharing, giving, and connecting with others. So overall, every December is kind of like a good opportunity to go into the things that we value the most, the things that, make us feel warm, that make us feel like we belong. But at the same time, it also creates the challenge, because not all of us feel warm, not all of us can connect with others, or are in a life situation where just a reminder of it may actually cause pain. So we have a month, just in general, in December, where there's a strong desire, there's a strong longing for something that comes up in all of us. And the energetic perspective on that is that, during these times where, we go a little bit more into the internal part of our journey, which is the winter time, here in the Northern Hemisphere, we do get reminded, we get these impulses, to focus more on, things such as connecting, and that is something that, from a spiritual perspective, which is still a little different than the energetic perspective, that we typically, express or live in form of these traditions that we have. So Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, those are all traditions that take place at the same time of the year, namely in December, for a reason, because it is the time where we all want to basically review the year. We want to go back to the lessons that we've learned in this year, and want to kind of look into the future and, make choices, make plans about how we want things to be different, or how we want, to allow new things to come into our lives. So it's normal that you feel a little more reflective in December, that you look at maybe your accomplishments, that you look at what you've learned. And this year, 2023, was particularly rich in lessons, and they didn't come easily. Now, why am I saying this? Because we are seeing so many changes. We're seeing so many transformations everywhere around us, that we are a little bit under pressure, I want to say, to look at our own life and see if there are things that we perhaps need to change. And That is something that we call an impulse. So let's talk about this a little bit, because it's important to understand how energies work through us. And the most unconscious way energies work through us is through impulses. Now, if you look at your life, yeah, from childhood to adulthood, there were different stages that you went through. Now, as you were going through these stages, you weren't really fully aware of them. It happened incrementally. But if you look back, you can clearly see, okay, yeah, when I was a teenager, I was mostly thinking about these kind of things, and these things were important to me. Then in my 20s, there was other things, and I focused more on this kind of stuff. And, when I was in my 30s, maybe I had kids, or, was more worried about status and so forth. So we do go through stages in our life, yeah, that have to do with the different life cycle that we are in. Excuse me. So as we go through these bigger cycles in our lifetime, yeah, we can also recognize that our environments go through lifetimes and life cycles. Yeah, for example, seasons. Seasons is the easiest way for us, to recognize that there are constant rhythms, that there are constant cycles that are going on. And as we learn to work with these rhythms and cycles, we become better at working with them. We become better at adjusting to them and regulating ourselves. Now, as energetically sensitives, and let's say spiritually sensitive person, we perhaps get a little more than that. We feel these cycles maybe even on a daily level, on a weekly level. Anybody here that who can make out that there's things that have nothing really to do with you, but that you are going through, and you see that it somehow relates to what other people go through? Anybody ever had this experience? Other than, let's say, a cold wave, where everybody gets a cold, the one that I'm getting over with now. Like where people are suddenly starting to think about other things. Now, Christmas obviously highly consumerized, everybody starts thinking about buying gifts. Everybody starts thinking about money, because the gift giving, can create a lot of pressure for families. So that is more of an artificial cycle. But what are some of the things that come forward for you, besides the ones that I've already mentioned that are general, in this end of the year cycle that you can tell is very specific to this time? Anybody had sort of an experience with that, or an insight as to what these patterns are? What are the typical sort of winter impulses that we have? And if you live on the southern hemisphere, you have summer now, so you will not feel it the same way as we do here in the northern hemisphere. You will, however, because your calendar and your traditions are still linked to the northern hemisphere traditions, you will feel the impulse as well, maybe not as strong. But what are some of these impulses that we get in the wintertime as energetically sensitives that repeat every year? What do you feel, sense, or perceive more so in the wintertime than in the summertime? We had a little pre-talk here before I pushed the record button, and one of you shared that because it's so cold in the wintertime, or colder, it feels harder to ground oneself. Would you like to elaborate on that? How does not feeling that you can ground yourself that well, how does that affect you?
For me, it's in the summer when my bare feet can touch the ground. That's very grounding, and I spend the whole summer in bare feet. But in our winter, even our fall, it's too cold and it's ice and snow covered. And I really feel the difference of not having my bare feet on the ground.
Okay, so but what is that difference? How does that play out? So the word grounding is a word that many of us use, but let's be practical. Let's describe that a little bit. If we cannot ground that well, what does that do to us?
I think I use grounding to calm. And so I have to have different kinds of ways to calm, and they're just not as effective or not as fast or not like I don't even have to think about grounding when I'm running around in bare feet all summer, but I have to really think about it in the winter.
So there's a little extra attention that we need to spend to grounding. In your case, grounding helps you to calm yourself. In my case, grounding helps me to be present, to feel something on my skin, yeah, underneath my feet that makes me feel safe, that makes me feel like I'm here, yeah, and I know where I'm at. Now, when I'm ungrounded, I feel a little bit disconnected, yeah, from everything. So you guys know that I sit outdoors in a tent, in what I call my healing tent here in Florida. So even though it's a little cooler, I can still see the leaves moving and my dogs playing over there and the birds flying and so forth. That helps me to ground. Yeah, the fact that I can do this. Now in the wintertime it's a lot harder. So that means we have to work a little harder on it. Now, what do you guys do to compensate for that? What are some things that we can do, yeah, to help our energy to ground, even though we can't walk around barefoot or can't touch our own skin, because that's another thing in the wintertime, because we wear so much clothing. There's multiple layers of clothing around our skin that our skin isn't really exposed.
I've set a hourly reminder to do some deep breathing.
Okay,
Just,
breathing.
yeah.
Okay. Breathing. Mm-hmm. I like drinking tea. Yeah, hot tea also helps me to ground. Mm-hmm. So there are some things that we need to do at a different cycle. Yeah. And with those changing cycles that we go through, like seasons, for example, we need to apply different routines to be able to balance or regulate our own energy. Now, this is significant here for the incoming end of the year energies, and with it also the new energies for 2024. Becoming a good energy manager, yeah, is one of our main tasks. And when I am referring to a task, what I am reflecting on is a collective cycle. Yeah, so besides the seasonal cycles and our own personal life cycles from childhood to senior adulthood, there are bigger cycles. Yeah, so seasons is obviously the cycle that the Earth goes through. And then there are cycles that our solar system is going through. Yeah, astrology tends to that. And then there are cycles that the entire human collective on this planet is going through. And that is what I reflect on when I talk about collective energies. Yeah, it takes, you studying this and recognizing the patterns of the collective to see what cycle we are in. And people like myself and other, astrologers or people who tend to the spiritual or more immaterial and esoteric aspects of our life, they will all reflect on, what it actually is that we as a human collective are working on. Yeah, so as a human collective, the bigger cycle that we are in, okay, we are supposed to learn how to work our energy, how to work our holistic being. Yeah, so if you look into the history of mankind, yeah, like say 10,000 years ago, the main task was to manage physical survival. Yeah, and then, yeah, maybe 2,000 years ago, we had more emotional aspects, more societal aspects come into the collective task, where it was more about regulating how we're feeling and how we're working things together as the population on the planet increased. We needed more social rules. We needed more, communication. We needed to learn how to read and write. We needed to learn how to convey information and so forth. So there were very long cycles where humans just had to learn how to live together, yeah, in larger compounds than just, sort of family tribes. And then about 500, 600 years ago, yeah, as more and more people could write and read, we started to explore the mental, the intellectual aspect of our collective, yeah, science. Yeah, we wanted to understand, we wanted to explain things. We didn't want to discover everything new. Yeah, we wanted to write books and teach things to the future generations. Yeah, so the last 500, 600 years were very much about the intellectual understanding of our material world, of our nature. Yeah, nature science. And the new cycle that we are entering in is the cycle of understanding the immaterial aspects of being a human. And this is why, you guys, no matter what kind of life circumstances, conditions you live in, no matter what place on the planet you live in, no matter what age you are in, you're receiving an impulse. Yeah, these cycles, just like how seasons, yeah, work through impulses. Yeah, you receive the impulse to seek in a more spiritual way, to seek, things such as, say, groundedness, calmness, inner peace, purpose, happiness, truth, freedom. Those are all immaterial things. And that's relatively new. Obviously, we, as people who are living here right now, we don't know how it was 100 years ago. We only know telltales. For us, it's normal, to talk about purpose and meaning and all this, but 100 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case. Or 500 years ago. Yeah, so the way our collective evolves and develops is through impulses that come in. And we can argue about where these impulses come from. Yeah, we can, of course, when it comes to the planet and the seasons, we can explain it somewhat. Yeah, that the impulse comes from the amount of sunlight hours, etc. Yeah, affecting the animals, affecting the plants, and so forth. So the sun plays a major role in our seasons and weather conditions. What is it then that gives us the impulse, to start thinking a little bit more about, these immaterial or spiritual aspects of life? Well, without a spiritual investigation, without actually asking those kind of questions, we cannot really answer that. But it is, as an ex-scientist, I can tell you that it is not illogical to assume that, these bigger cycles are reflections of smaller cycles. That there's a connection between, let's say, how things inside of our body work, how things on our planet works, how things in our solar system work, and how things in our universe work. There is a connection we can clearly see, and science today is in agreement to this, with this, yeah, that there is a replication, that there's sort of a fractal nature in the universe, which means that there is like a mirroring of microscopic into macroscopic, or microcosmic into macrocosmic cycles and rhythms. So it's not illogical to assume that there are larger cycles, and that these larger cycles occur, just in maybe time frames of 200-300 years, or 2,000-3,000 years, that we only live a lifetime of like 70, 80, 90 years, cannot see. So the impulse, to think more about these immaterial values in our life, truth and freedom, connection, peace, etc., is something that one could call the human consciousness evolution. This is the phase that we are in right now, and within that phase, within that cycle, of investigating the immaterial aspects of being a human, we are now, for the last 30 years roughly, getting an impulse to investigate our internal energies and how they interact with external energies. So there's a reason, it is no coincidence that more and more people use the word energy and vibes and stuff like that, because we do recognize that we all feel something like this. We feel the effects of energies. We just can't fully explain it yet. And so it is up to us here now, this day and age, actually this moment here right now, to start this conversation, to explore and share and learn from one another, so that we can better understand the dynamics. So when we talk about grounding, for example, this is a really, really important step to investigate this. Is this something that I need? How can it help me? What does it allow me to, let's say, better regulate? Because when I am ungrounded, I may make bad decisions. When I'm ungrounded, I may feel nervous. I may feel anxious. I may feel sort of doomy gloomy. It may affect my relationships. It may affect my emotional state. It may affect the kind of thoughts that are going through my head. I may become quite negative in my inner self-talk. It may even become a major factor in, how I choose to live my life, what kind of job I am working, and, how much money I can make. That is very, very clear, to our today's understanding, that if you have a more positive outlook on life, that you are much more likely to manifest a life that aligns with you. So we can say, as a hypothesis here, that if we spend a life, in an ungrounded or imbalanced state, that it can negatively affect our life, seen from a holistic perspective. Whereas before, we may have just looked at the financial aspect of life, the comfort aspect of life, the security aspect of life. The impulse to investigate the more immaterial aspects of our life is a spiritual impulse, and that is there for us to learn, and fully internalize these energetic components of who we are. Now, then within, and our lingo is not very precise here, but within this immaterial realm of cycles, we also have specific spiritual impulses they are a little different than energetic impulses. So an energetic impulse is something that Linda shared here with us. To look at the vibes, to look at, things such as, do I feel balanced? Do I feel, in harmony or in disharmony with something? This can be people, places, or things. A spiritual impulse goes a little farther. A spiritual impulse is signified by questions such as, who am I? What am I? Where am I from? Where will I go? What is death? What happens after death? Is there something like rebirth? Yeah, all these kinds of questions, we call those spiritual questions, because they imply that there is something like a bigger plan, that there's something like a bigger cycle that we all go through. And the big paradigm shift that we are experiencing right now, guys, this is why there is so much talk about change and transformation, apart from the secular aspects, money and governments and stuff like that, is that we are now at a phase of our human consciousness development, okay, where we need to start building a bridge between the material and the immaterial world, where our thinking has to become more holistic, more cybernetic. Yeah, we can see this in so many of the problems that we have in the world right now. For example, climate change. For example, whether or not it even makes sense to have wars and stuff like this. Yeah, the whole aspect of resources, the whole aspect of people living together, mental health crisis, etc. The whole aspect of healthy living. Those are all very, very complex aspects that require us to think in a more holistic way if we want to resolve them. So impulses come in through two major pathways. The first, and that's the most prevalent for most of us to experience, is through the absence of something or through the lack of something. Yeah, so for example, simplest way to think of it is money. Okay, so someone who has a lot of money doesn't really need to think too much about money. I mean, it's not always true, yeah, because there is also something like greed or something like, trying to secure the money. But, people who experience a lack of money think a lot more about money than those who have money. People who are in harmony with their life, with, like, say, their partnerships, their jobs and so forth, they think a lot less about these kind of things. Now, those of us who may have had times in their lives where they had the feeling of balance, a feeling of harmony, and experience a loss of that, yeah, which is sort of a step up from just experience a lack of something. But if you experience a loss of something, then that intensifies this impulse, yeah, to work this out. Yeah, for example, when you go through a divorce, yeah, if you've had, like, say, a marriage and you've had children and so forth, you felt like you had a stability within your family setting, and one day you decide to get divorced, you lose more than just a spouse. Yeah, you also lose that feeling of belonging and that feeling of, family that came with, being married. So what I want to show with this is that impulses, yeah, for us to change something or to start having new thoughts or being motivated, becoming motivated to change something, first and foremost come in through lack or loss. The other kind of impulse that we perceive, and that is a little less conscious, is something that we cannot really grip. It is something that comes in through what we call the collective thought field, the collective unconscious. Yeah, where all of a sudden, you know, multiple people are starting to feel an interest in certain things. This is something that I could observe very clearly here in the course of my life. Yeah, I'm almost 60 years old. So when I came into this world, everything was very, very material. Yeah, a little bit of social. So in the 70s, it was, the impulse was there to think about, how can we live together in a more harmonious way? And then in the 80s, it was the impulse and how can we optimize, yeah, working and living together. Is when computers started to come up and dominate our, way of thinking. Yeah, optimizing things, streamlining things, outsourcing things, yeah, automating things. And then in the 90s came sort of the first wave of health awareness. Yeah, like how can we prolong our life? How can we, anti-aging was such a word that was created in the 90s. Yeah, how can we defy, or slow down the aging process? And then in the early 2000s, we started to think about, how can we bring more, like joy into our lives? Yeah, how can we bring more self-care into our lives? It was the time, where people started to do more therapies, are looking for alternative therapies, like recognizing that, self-care and self-love is a very important part of our well-being. And then in the last decade, we had a lot of impulses that had to do with, just maximizing everything. Yeah, maximizing capital, maximizing, all the things that we have accomplished and so forth. And now, yeah, in the cycle that we are in right now, we're experiencing a little bit of a lack or a loss. Yeah, so things about money, inflation, and so forth, things about resources. Yeah, so if you look into the media, most things that are being talked about in our societies have to do with we're running out of time, we're running out of resources, we're running out of money, and so forth. So there's an impulse that is coming in through the collective unconscious right now, yeah, to perhaps think a little bit more ahead, yeah, to not just, be in the moment and, and live like there is no tomorrow. So we're getting the impulse to think in a larger cycle, yeah, to think ahead. And for many of us, this is coming in, with fear. Yeah, with the fear of loss, with the fear of lack. And here is where our consciousness comes in. If you allow this impulse to come in, okay, so yes, we're all worried about the planet and the state of health, the state of resources, etc. Yeah, we know that the party has to end at some point. So now we are in a cycle where we have to learn how to bridge this. Okay, what can we do better now? Yeah, what have we learned in the course, not just of our own personal life cycle, but also in the course of, let's say, the developments of our modern societies? Yeah, that we now need to apply. For example, yeah, we've been dealing with computers and software and hardware and so forth, yeah, like machines that can optimize, that can automize our work life. We now are at the beginning of artificial intelligence, yeah, which is just another level, yeah, of optimization and streamlining things. How does that, or how is that going to affect our lives in the future? And what have we learned from the past that we can or must apply now? Now, this may not affect you in your personal lives, or so you think, but just like with computers, Yeah, in the beginning of computers in the early 80s, guys, nobody thought that it would ever affect their life. And look at you now. 40, 45, 50 years later, we are walking around with little computers. We have watches that are little computers. And it is not illogical when you think into the future that there is going to be more of this sort of machine-like environment in the future. And what have we learned about this so far? We already know quite a few things. We know that it's actually not that good to live in artificial light. We know that it's not that good to sit in front of a computer screen or to carry around a phone close to our reproductive organs or to our head. We know quite a few things without going into any of this conspiracy theories right now. We already understand that there's a downside to technology. Yeah, and that's something that we need to learn to master now. On this physical, material, machine-like level, we have to learn how to master technology. On the other side, on the other hand, okay, we also need to learn how to master our own inner responses to that. Yeah, so with our world becoming more and more automated and more and more, like less harsh, if you will, we have a lot more time. And we haven't really, as societies, figured out how to use this time wisely. Most of us are being busy with things that we didn't even have 15 years ago. Yeah, like social media, looking at your phone all day long. This is something that we didn't even have 15 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So there are some things that we need to master now. Yeah, how we spend our energy, what we pay attention to, what we lend our conscious awake awareness and attention to. That is an impulse that has developed out of our societal developments. And what that does to us is that we actually start thinking about, well, does this even make sense? Does this even have meaning? Does this even have value to me? Why am I even doing this? Yeah, we start asking all these questions, and asking all these questions, guys, is a spiritual impulse. We want to better understand who we are so that we can make better choices in life. And so whether or not you call yourself spiritual, this train is already rolling. We are in a what is broadly called phase of global awakening, an awakening to our own being and what it means to be human. And that is fundamentally a spiritual process, which includes energy management. How do I spend my energy? In form of time, of money, of attention, of what I'm exposing my body to, the people that I'm exposing myself to. Yeah. Oops. All the things that affect me in some way. So today I wanted to just open your minds for one of the main themes coming in December and also the next 2 years, and that is how to manage our energy more efficiently. And for that, we need to open up the way we see ourselves. If we see ourselves like we would look at a machine, then we might find ourselves in a very limited place or space. If we, however, recognize that the power of our consciousness is perhaps much greater than we originally thought, if we allow ourselves to maybe think in terms of us fundamentally being a spirit being that is having a physical experience, then we will discover that some of the things that we have been aligning ourselves to, comfort, security, etc., that are all material in nature, aren't really that important to us in the bigger picture. So I want to send you home with just a lot of these thought snippets and reflection on the overall cycle that you are entering now, you and me and everybody else. Some of us are more aware of it. Some of us have received those impulses, those spiritual impulses 20, 30, 40 years ago. So they've already done quite a bit of work there. Yeah. And some of us are just now awakening to the fact that there is more than just the body and the comfort and security. Yeah, they're beginning to see that there is more to life and more to being human, than just the material aspect. So this is what spiritual awakening means. And I haven't even used any of these typical spiritual words like divine or sacred or soul or anything. We're just at the beginning of understanding why we are feeling these impulses. And I want you guys to reflect on that. Yeah. I know that many of you here have already done quite a bit of work, and you may have even studied or explored different esoteric or religious or spiritual teachings. Yeah, which puts you right on track with the larger cycle that we're in. You have been preparing, for a time in which the spiritual aspects, the immaterial aspects, and the energetic aspects of life become more important. Yeah, and they will express in ways that have to do with truth, that have to do with freedom, that have to do with love and connection, that have to do with authenticity, unity, harmony, and integrity. This is the big transformation that we are going through right now. And what we are experiencing in these days, in these months, is the collapse of the old, the pure material perspective on life. And as we're going through these transformations, remember that it is the spiritual impulse in you that has already prepared you. Now, for many of us of the older generation especially, it's time that we come out of the woodwork. It's time that we take this more seriously, that we no longer just see this as a hobby or think that it's something that we have to do in secrecy because other people make fun of us. You will recognize that there is a power that has literally prepared you to understanding things that other people are just now waking up to. Okay. So as we are here in our Energy Training Club working on our soul's integrity in this marathon that is going on right now, I need to leave you now and start the next energy session. Yeah, check out the 50% loyalty discount that I have put into my shop for the Energy Training Club, which is the ongoing working with energy sessions and workshops and energy talks and online meditations. Or if you're actually interested in systematically investigating and exploring what energy management is, then consider joining our our energy course, a 6-week course held on Saturdays and one extra training day during the week, starting on December 2nd. Yeah, this Saturday, there's a 50% discount on my website. Yeah, I can put the link down here into the description. Valid until December 12th. All right, everyone. I see you very soon. I'm wishing you a wonderful end of the year energies and hope to be able to accompany you. I have a big surprise for you in December that I am very, very excited about. Okay, more on that next week. Bye-bye.